All right, we are back for another edition. Another edition. Let me see if I can change this. Hold on. I can't change it. Another edition of the Astro Weather. Let me see if I can back here. Okay. There we go. I'm going to try and get a better mic signal today. Excuse me. I noticed that I was a little tinny the other night on the Longo show, which, by the way, if you haven't seen, is a pretty epic 4-hour show with, I think, 3 hours with me and Dr. Longo, and then, of course, I think about an hour and a half, maybe, of me at the beginning, sort of ranting at the world and this whole Saturn and Aries energy, which is coming. And yeah, I thought it was a really, really great show. And shout out to Longo for spending all that time, because he'd already been doing something else. Like, he wasn't available until like 9 my time. So that was 10 his time. So he ran really late. Anyway, I hope you watch it, and I hope you enjoyed it. All right, let's see who we got here today. By the way, I need to have a little bit of my True Hemp Science. We saw Chris on Saturday night over at the Kerrville Folk Festival. And that's going to be the topic of today's 15 Minutes of Flame. There's other things I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to talk about how something as rootsy and folky as a humble little folk festival has metastasized into a cash machine, and the wanton and ridiculous capitalism. And I'm okay with capitalism. Like, if you can make a buck, by all means, make it, right? But the roots of the Kerrville Folk Festival and where it started and its very humble beginnings, and what I experienced as, let's just call it gouging, right? There's like making a profit, and then there's gouging. And I'm going to get into the gouging of the Kerrville Folk Festival and why it is symptomatic of our society and the stratification of wealth that is kind of like risen to the top, and there are people that like control that wealth and have been controlling that wealth for decades. And what they do is they just continue to accrue more wealth. And there's nothing really wrong with that. I don't want to sound like I'm bitching about making money. But when I get into the specifics of it, it's like it's something that was a really great homespun idea that brought people together is almost as bad as what you'll find in a place like New York or Los Angeles, where you go to like a runway show or some other really plastic and artificial display of culture. And one is just at least honest about its, potential superficiality, while the other is cloaked in this sort of down-homey, folk-friendly atmosphere. But when you really pull the curtain back, what you see is a group of people who are just as carnivorous as these other examples of what we call culture, right? So I'm going to get into that, and it should be an interesting show. There's other things I'm going to talk about as well. So that's kind of the lead for 15 Minutes of Flame. There is a link inside of the show description. And just another, brief show note here. So the event with David in Frisco, Texas is on. I've submitted my photo and my bio, so we should be provided with links to sign up for the event. And so that's happening. And David and I are going to be closing the show on that Sunday night. And there's going to be, basically Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday. I think David's DJing on Saturday night. So if you want to have a really cool experience with astrology, gathering, right, hooking up with people in Chattaria, also new people from kind of other places and spaces, this is going to be a great event. And for me, it's like I don't have to put together an event, which I don't mind doing. I don't mind doing that, but I'm really happy somebody else is doing it, because all I have to do is just focus on what I'm going to bring to the table, and it'll be a really, really good time. So we'll have that link shortly, and I would suggest that I think this is an event that's going to sell out, because it's not just David and me. There's other speakers that people are going to want to see. There's going to be vendors there. So it's going to be a really, really cool weekend. And for those of you who live outside of the Frisco area, you can just fly into Dallas, and you're not very far away from the whole thing. And I'm sure you might be able to shuttle from the airport to the hotel. Who knows? Maybe you'll see Carmelo Anthony's parents along the way. Just wave hi. And then one other little piece of sort of housekeeping here. I am still working on the Pam Fine story. I'm working on the Michigan side, the Oxford Hill side, or the Oxford, Michigan side, and the shooting of Ethan Brumley. Well, the shooting occurred, and Ethan Brumley was the shooter. So I'm still working on that, and there are things that I'm sort of planning here, and so that's not really going away. I feel like it's a story that hasn't really had its due, and so that's incumbent upon me, I think, in order to bring it. And it's always interesting wearing these two separate hats, right? Like, so there's the astrologer me, the prognosticator me, and then there's sort of the journalistic side of me. And we're in Gemini, right? So, it's okay to wear a couple hats. All right, let's see who we have here. I hope to be there. Robert McKinney is next door. Oh, I hope you're there too. Let's see. The Bisu's here. Hey, we got a JJ side. I'm going from the bottom to the top. Exploring the Ka with Ra. What's going on, Ra? Ra was the star of the show a couple weeks ago. Great, great show. I'm so happy you and David got work coming up. Yeah, me too. Especially since I don't have to plan for it. Scrubbies is here. Name checking. Orlando, Catherine Rosen. We're going bottom up today. Haridas, Haridas. Perfect for a projector. We just turn up. Oh, those invitations are important, aren't they, Haridas? They're very important. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Night Slight. I'll sell some XRP if I need to. There you go. You're going to be an XRP billionaire soon. New moon in Gemini. Timely. I love it. Yeah. I'm coming even if I have to sleep in my car. Well, it is October, so it probably won't be that hot. You might be able to catch a good couple of nights there. Valeria Rubens is here. Our guy Thor at the door. Kristen Foos. Hi, Kristen. Of course, Janice Phillips. Lisa Ann White. The Law. My guy Ryan, the introspective woodworker. There's Tom. Put up the link to Rumble. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Yes, Scrubbies is back. Guess who else is back? Yeah, that's right. Sigurd. The legendary Sigurd is back. bringing his wit and sarcasm that only Sigurd can bring. This is what he has to say. Glastonbury is in the same brutal tier. Started off as a free festival. Now you have $10,000 VIP packages with heated gimp tents. Yeah, I know. This is, is this the ultimate evolution of capitalism? Right? Does capitalism just, lead into like gouging? I mean, I guess, if that's what the market, if that's what people will pay for the market, then they will continue to offer up these absolutely insane, like either packages or, and I'm not going to fire all my rounds here, but I'm going to talk about the price of a ticket to this event for one night. For one night, I'm not going to empty my clip here, but it's going to be part of the discussion. All right, let's get into the weather. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's go. Let's make it happen. All right. Here we go. So you know what I have to do. I have to burn. I have to burn the first one. Here we go. Stop sharing. And we got to come back again. One more time. And share screen. And there we go. And there we are. And we should be absolutely good to go. Yes, of course, I like the new layout here where the image is bigger. The image is bigger. I'm sure I pissed some people off on Sunday night. Robert's a sexist. He's a misogynist. I used to be called a misogynist a lot. Back in the late teens. He's a misogynist. He hates women. No, I don't hate women. I just don't like what society has done to women. Okay? And there's this grave imbalance between the masculine and the feminine. And that's where my head is at. Okay. All right. Here we go. New moon. I love it. New moon in Gemini. This is actually a pretty good fucking day. I just got to say. Pretty good day. Of course, those are the words of one Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Larry David happens to be a Gemini. Of course, he's a Gemini. He's an archetypal Gemini, isn't he? So we have Mercury, Sun, Moon, the big three. Oh, look at that. Gemini rising, Jupiter in Gemini. Boy, if you had a kid born right now, they'd be reading by the age of, I don't know, two, very advanced. So there's a lot of chatter in the air. Chatter is not bad. It's not a bad thing. Chatter can be a good thing. Geminis know how to gossip. Of all the signs that indulges in gossip, Geminis are the most notorious. And somehow they manage to turn gossip into something factual and kind of interesting, right? So there's this new breed of shows that are starting to come out on YouTube, and it's mostly women. And I'm really kind of hooked on The Nerve with Maureen Callahan, because she is taking gossip in celebrity culture and fucking harpooning it. Right. And she's calling out the ridiculousness of this fake celebrity culture. Right. Like, so one of the things she gets into is Salma Hayek, who is on the cover of Sports Illustrated, or she's part of the swimsuit issue. Right. Salma Hayek is 50. She looks 30. And Salma Hayek talks about her, her beauty tips. And they're really like mundane. Oh, I just get lots of sleep, and I like to meditate, and I drink lots of water. Like, really? That's how you stay young? No, you have some of the greatest fucking plastic surgeons in the world because your husband is one of the richest men in the world, and he's a billionaire. His company is the second largest brand company in the world. And so what she does is she gets into like these stories, and she's really great at skewing people who write these self-help books, right? And she goes after women, although some men come into her, her sites every now and then. But she's like this new version of gossip that has some degree of truth in it, which to me, this is like the higher frequency of Gemini and the higher frequency of like Hermes, because Geminis will say shit that will make people uncomfortable. And they kind of do it on purpose, even though I'm not always sure they're conscious of it, because they're working out the Gemini side. It's like they have this other self, and they just start, they'll start jamming the frequencies. And in that sense, Geminis can really, piss people off at times, because that's what they do. They poke the bear. Gemini pokes the bear. And sometimes the bear needs to be poked. It's just the way it is. So I am actually elevating Gemini today because it is a new moon. And what you do on this new moon is a really critical thing, right? It's a really critical thing. So what are you going to commit to on this new moon in Gemini? And look at that trine to Pluto. Oh yeah, look at that sextile to Neptune, right? Mercury, Sun, Moon, all in that trine with Pluto. So talking and sharing, and we'll bring up gossip again, although that's not really the word that I want to use. Like, there is a depth to it all, right? Today, there is a depth to everything. And it's a great cycle to really begin something new. Like, it's a fantastic cycle. Because the other thing too, with the sextile with Neptune, is that it is also blended with a sense of compassion and empathy. And I've gotten into this interesting thread. I'm just bringing this up because it's public. You can go on my Twitter feed and you can find it if you want. So it's not anything that I'm like betraying the confidence of someone, because it's on my Twitter feed. Everybody can read it. And I got into this thread with a young man who is a Gemini, who has the sun in the 12th house. Okay. And I put up this funny little one line on Twitter about Gemini. And it goes like this: Gemini, it's always about them and them. And I thought it was, kind of witty and funny, kind of very Gemini-like, right? And then he launches into this confessional about how, because he has a sun in the 12th house and he's Gemini, how he's been fucked over, right? And this is the thread that is on Twitter, that he's been fucked over again and again and again. And now the fucking overtime is over, and he is taking no prisoners, and he's going to say whatever the fuck he wants, even if it hurts, people's so-called feelings, right? And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay. If that's what you want to do, then go ahead and do it. But then on further examination, as we go through this thread, and what I could see is that he's actually really bitter. Like, he's bitter because and I don't know the backstory, right? But he was too nice, too kind, and people shit on him. And so now that's over, and he's in take no prisoners mode. And so, what I said is that, hey man, truth can be a bitter fruit, right? It can be, but it can also be acidic and eat away at the soul. And this is a Gemini thing. And I said, it needs to be tempered by the mana of forgiveness. It may be the forgiveness that might be helpful for you is not forgiving the other people, but for forgiving yourself by allowing these people to fuck you over. Okay. And it, again, it keeps escalating, right? And it's like, no, it's them. They did it to me. They did it to me. They did, this is like his retort. And I said, look, if it happens once or twice, yeah, it's a they. It's a they. Yeah, they did do it to you. But if it happens multiple times, it's no longer a they. Right? Like, that's kind of on you for allowing them to stomp all over you. And then he came back with, so, what do I do? Just, not be nice? I'm trying to figure out where this is going, right? I'm like, well, you don't have to be nice, or you can be nice. What you really want to do, he's looking like, how do I solve this, right? How do I solve this dilemma? And it's all on Twitter, with me having been too nice and people shitting on me. And I said, what you do, I think Patricia, just being me, saw this thread because she actually commented on it or liked it. And I said, what you have to do is you have to send a signal of self-respect. And eventually what will happen is you will attract people who will not shit on you. You won't attract swine, so you don't have to cast pearls before them, right? And so it's a really interesting exchange, very public, right there on Twitter, and dealing with this idea of being victimized. It's like we all have a hand in that. We all have a role in our own victimization. After a certain point, you can blame other people, but at the end of the day, we are the ones that are allowing these things to happen to us. And until we have full accountability around those things, we're not really getting to the root, right? We're not really getting to the root of why things occur, because we just continue to point the finger at the other, right? There's going to be, 3 others pointing back at us, which is ultimately true. So one of the things that we can do here with this new moon in Gemini is we can start so many new things. We can start a new way of communicating, a new way of seeing, how we participate in either our own kind of robotic enslavement, or how we can be conscious and take some degree of accountability for who we are and what we want to say, communicate. If you're a writer, this is a great time to dedicate yourself to something new on the writing side of things, right? This is beautiful. If you are engaged in communication with your siblings, like if you have some sibling issues, today is a great day to reach out, right? Extend the olive branch, or, hey, what's happening? Because there's a better than average chance that if there's conflict or there's some strife in that world, then you're going to be able to address it, talk about it. And the thing I love about Gemini is the ability to have the other part of who you are, or how many other parts of who you are, right? To sort of look at things in a sort of dispassionate way, because that's the nature of Gemini, right? It's like, okay, well, let me flip this switch, and whatever part of me gets to be the observer and observe what's going on is engaged in the process, right? So this is not just being observational, but it's being observational with the ability to communicate. And it's also a time where you can be inventive. There's a lot of really inventive energy, in the air. So I was working out last night with my trainer, and he has to make wants to make a video, right? He wants to make a video, and he's never, he's younger than me. You'd think that he has some degree of technological know-how, which he does to a certain extent, but he spends a lot of his time training and not being in tech world. So I said, let's make a video. Like after we were done working out, I said, let's make a video. And I said, give me your phone. Let me see what you got. So he has a Android, right? An Android. And so his app that he has is, I think it's Canva or something like that. And I have iMovie, obviously. So I got his cell phone, I got into his app, and we shot a video. And it took maybe 20 minutes. And I was able to figure out the app, do transitions. I was able to put a crawl underneath so that, what he was talking about, because this is where technology is, right? Like that app could read his voice. It reads his voice and then it spells everything out in the crawl. So within 25 minutes or so, we created a video, right? Based on a series of exercises that he did. And again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I didn't know that app. And I certainly didn't know the Android phone, but it's like, well, let's do this, right? Let's figure it out, right? And this is the energy that we have today. It's like, let's figure it out. Let's figure out how to be adaptable. Let's figure out how to dive into something where we can use our brains and say, okay, well, this is how this thing works, right? And it's available to everybody. Everybody. You don't have to see, this is the beautiful thing about being a human. We have this vast, it's kind of like Keanu Reeves and Neo in the Matrix, right? We have this vast compendium of skills and adaptability, like we'll call it the universal mind. And we can tap into that, right? We can tap into it. We may not necessarily know what to do or how to do it when we start, but if we can get over our frustration, our anxiety, whatever that thing is that keeps us from doing something new, it can be done. It can totally be done. So today is one of those days where if you want to explore something different, test yourself, right? Or even communicate in a way that is going to be different than the way that you normally communicate. If you are an introvert, this is a great opportunity for you to flex into extroversion. This is a kind of a no harm, no foul zone, okay? And if you're an extrovert and that's how you normally run your program, it's okay to not have to say anything, focus, and maybe redirect your intellect or your brain in a different direction so that, like last night, I'm figuring out how to do this thing on this guy's phone, right? And then so I just kind of redirected shit. Today is a fantastic, fantastic day to do that. Don't sleep on it, right? Just don't sleep on it. If you have the opportunity to redirect, whether it's your energy, your route to work, your routine, this is a great, great day to start something new. Because with these transits, it's not just oh, we had a new moon and I got to try something new and boy, wasn't that great? No, it was great. But the idea is for you to integrate. Everything is about integration with astrology. You have a transit. It can be a wonderful transit. Oh, gee, I really love that transit, when Pluto was in that long trine with Jupiter in my chart. Man, I made all this money and there were all these resources and people wanted to back my business. And boy, I really miss that Pluto-Jupiter trine. I really miss them because, man, I was really cooking. The idea is you're supposed to integrate that. What were you doing? What kind of connections did you have? If there were people that helped you out or gave you, some kind of, startup money, largesse, whatever, right? What do you do with that? You pay it forward. And it's hey, well, maybe I can do that for other people, right? So this is the whole idea around transits. It's about integration. And so by the time you're done, right, you're sitting there and you're Willie Nelson, who's getting ready to pass away, by the way. Willie Nelson is on his way out. Let's say you're Willie Nelson. And you look at your life and you go, well, I did all these things. and I started off in this one place and I ended up over here. And the reason why I got to here is because if he really sat down and kind of looked at his chart, it's because there were moments in his life where he integrated certain things about his experience, right? It's kind of like, let's say he had a great transit when he wrote his first hit. So he writes his first hit. Well, how can I do it again? And how can I do it again? And how can I do it again? And that's what I'm talking about with integration. So today is a great day to start something new, start something where you have to, I would say have to, but challenge yourself a little bit, right? Challenge yourself. It's like, it's like, look, the water in the pool is warm. Jump in. Yeah, we got all these sextiles with Neptune, and yeah, we got a square with Jupiter and Neptune, and it's almost like, can you be like too kind? Can you be too generous? Jupiter, and any Jupiter square is like opening up the thing that Jupiter is squaring off against. Like, can you be too forgiving? I don't know. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe somebody says, Jesus, I never thought I'd hear those words out of that person. Wow. That's a life changer. That's a game changer. We do have the Venus-Pluto square, and that's going to get more intense as Venus begins to ingress into Taurus. And Venus-Pluto squares get back into that discussion around Persephone and the underworld and extricating yourself from relationships that are not really the best for you, right? It's like some psychological force, some demonic force is holding you down or holding you back. So if you're one of those people that are experiencing that in your life right now, guess what? That's right. The prospect of liberation is at hand, but you have to face the chains that you are dealing with and more than likely had some degree of contribution. Not all, but some degree of contribution. And it's like, okay, who put these chains on there? How did I allow those chains to get put on me? Well, maybe I'm the person that has to undo the chains. It's really, okay, this is a Gemini factoid. And I'm sort of reaching back into my own personal history to give you this example. I used to watch the black and white version of Superman with George Reeves. And it was kind of corny. But there's an episode where they being like Clark and Jimmy and Lois, they encounter this guy who's a hypnotist. Okay, he's a hypnotist. And he puts paper handcuffs on all of them. And they believe the handcuffs are metal, right? They believe the handcuffs that they have are made out of metal. And so half the show, they're walking around like these zombies in chains. And in reality, the handcuffs were just paper. And I think Superman somehow awakens them to the fact that all they have to do is realize that the handcuffs are paper and they just break them apart. I think that's a really apt metaphor for what we're looking at today, because you have all this energy here, which is getting you to think about and look at things from a different perspective. And if you're stuck and you're rooted in a relationship, a partnership, or a contract that you can't get out of, well, maybe the chains that you've created for that are paper handcuffs. And all you have to do is just break them apart, right? Keep that in mind. Okay, I got one other thing to share. And I have this really great client who I've been doing some coaching with, terrific person. And working on, how do I find somebody to date and ultimately marry and have children with? Like, this is a fantastic opportunity for me to stretch myself, right? Like, okay, well, how do we go about doing this? How do we work on this? And she was really incredible in terms of like taking the coaching on and really applying it. And so one of the things that she asked me is like, I have one final question. And it has to do with like social anxiety. Okay. And how do I deal with like settings where I have some degree of social anxiety? And I thought about it and I said, okay, here's what you do. And this is really going to be part and parcel with this new moon sun conjunction. So if you do have social anxiety, if you're somebody when you enter an event and your first reaction is like, you know, oh shit, I'm nervous, I don't want to talk to anybody, right? Like if that is your first go-to, here is something that can help you. Okay. First of all, if you know that you're going to a specific event ahead of time and you have some degree of anxiety about it, go to the event ahead of time in your head. Okay? Go to your event ahead of time in your head and see yourself walking through that door, and the people in that room are open and they're smiling and they are not going to judge you, right? It's like you're doing a dress rehearsal. And what you're doing is you're creating a contract with your future self. This is what you're doing. That is step one. Step two is when you get to the door in real life, you stop. And this is something that I actually think all of us would probably profit from if we do. You stop at the door before you enter that space. You just don't open the door and walk in, right? You stop and you open before you get to the door, and you ask yourself, who am I when I step into this room, right? Who am I when I step into this room? And the question is very valid. The answer is, I am relaxed and I am present. You don't have to be anybody else. I am relaxed and I am present. And you take a deep breath and you open the door and you walk through it. That's how you deal with social anxiety. You collect yourself before you enter the room and the situation. Who am I when I step into this room? And the right answer is, I am relaxed and I am present. You take the breath, you open the door, and then all you got to do is find one face in that room. I guarantee you there'll be one face in that room who will have a smile. One face, and that's all you got to focus on. It's like, that's it. That's my affirmation. And then you show up, and then you allow yourself to be present, right? So again, new moon conjunct the sun. This is a new way of entering like a public space if you have social anxiety or some degree of anxiety in general. All right, there you go. A lot to chew on today. Let's talk about our star of the day. Our star of the day. Another notorious Gemini. I'm sorry, Gemini, you got some notorious motherfuckers that are part of your world. Don't worry, Virgos have their own. They've got their own version. All right, we're going to talk True Hemp Science. We saw Chris Saturday night at the event. He was there, and he was selling some CBD, and he did a great job, right? He was, I got to see him in action, sharing with people about the remarkable attributes of CBD. And he had a nice little line there, and we got into this one conversation. This woman's name was Karen. And it led to a very interesting conversation. Anyway, Karen and her husband wound up buying over $500 worth of CBD. There you go. So it was, I think, a pretty successful and abundant night for our guy, Chris. And I would get some of this great CBD product while you can. Just saying. If you go to True Hemp Science, okay, if you go to truehempscience.com and you haven't tried anything, I urge you to try some of the product. And the reason I'm urging you is because there is a very good chance that it will not be available after September. And I'm not just talking about Chris. I'm talking about every CBD purveyor in the state of Texas, which, by the way, these CBD purveyors, they employ 50,000 people. That's the rough estimate. And they support local economies. And that is more than likely going to go away. Like SB3 passed, Greg Abbott just has to sign it. And by September, it's going to be a very different story and playing field for the CBD people. So I guess what I'm saying is if you want to get the product, you want to get the product from Chris, which is a tremendous product, you may want to think about getting it now and not hold off. So 15MINS, that is your code. And if you buy $100 or more, you will get the goodie bag. The goodie bag has a lot of really neat little things that come along with your order. $150 or more gets you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. And it's unfortunate that Chris and a lot of other people in the CBD world are staring this down. And there's a slim possibility that Greg Abbott will not sign it, but I wouldn't hold my breath. All right, let's talk about Wayne Williams. I got into this interesting thread on YouTube last night. And there's a guy by the name of Jeff Pearlman who is a sports writer. And he did the interview with John Rocker way back in the day. And John Rocker had some things to say about New Yorkers and New York in general that was not really politically correct. And when he said it, John Rocker was met with scorn by the city of New York, not just the Yankees, but also the Mets fans and also the liberal media, because John Rocker said he hated New York. He hated the fact that there were a bunch of people that were there that he didn't think should be there, that were scamming off the system. Like, these are comments that if John Rocker made them now, he would be based, right? But back in the 90s, he was singled out, and Jeff Pearlman was one of the guys that did it because he wrote a story that is not really kind to John Rocker. Jeff Pearlman is a liberal sports journalist, and he posts on Blue Sky and Threads. So he's not a Twitter guy because he doesn't want to go there. And one of the people on that thread said, oh, Georgia is filled with John Rockers. And we have other great people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Jimmy Carter and Tyler Perry and Gladys Knight. Well, I hate to say it, but Georgia's got some other people that you kind of skimmed over, and Wayne Williams happens to be one of them. Wayne Williams was eventually tried for the murder of two men, but Wayne Williams has also been linked to the disappearance of 22, there's a number, young boys in the Atlanta area. So Wayne Williams was a predator, right? They got him on two murders, but he was also a predator, and these kids just went missing, right? And what's interesting about Wayne Williams is that he was a prodigy. And when he was 12 years old, he started his own radio station. He was a freelance photographer who did work for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He was a guy that had a lot of talents. So look at his chart. He's a complex dude. Like, there is a lot going on in this chart, right? This is what happens when you have a splash chart. This is a classic splash chart, right? You're going to get the Grand Cross, right? In this case, it's going to be fixed. Chiron, Mercury, Uranus, and Neptune. Grand Cross. You're going to get the Grand Trine, Pluto, Saturn, Venus, right? You get all these other sextiles, trines, inconjuncts. These are hard charts to navigate through life. And you can either surmount the challenges and master the chart, or the chart can be your own kind of self-destruction. Right. So Wayne Williams had a ton of gifts, but he also had some other things going on. Let's take a look at Pluto. Pluto in the 12th house in Leo. What does Leo represent? Unfortunately, it represents children. And what is the 12th house? It's the area that is just not seen, right? And what's going on with his sun? He's got a Sun-Pluto square. Oh, boy. So was Wayne Williams responsible for the disappearance of 22 kids? Well, I would say, yeah. And one of the reasons why, and I'm going to show you why, is the prevalence of the number 22 in his chart. He's got Chiron at 22 degrees. And it opposes Pluto, right, at 22. He's got Jupiter at 22 degrees, right? So the number 22 is prevalent. He's got Mars in Pisces at 22 degrees. And remember, there were 22 children that supposedly went missing. 22, 22, 22. Like, the chart leaves clues. And of that 22, it's Chiron. And it's opposing Pluto, right? And it's in the 6th house. And it's creepy. I don't know why Wayne Williams murdered those two people. They were men. I don't know why he murdered them. But again, they were able to track these 22 missing kids because they all had connections with Wayne Williams. And they'd all just kind of went, sort of, we don't really want to talk about this. We don't really want to look about this. We don't really want to look at this. We're gonna get him on that fact that he killed these two men. But the kids, oh no, we're not going to talk about it. And it's a very, very strange case because one of the things that he did is he had a great front, right? He had a Virgo rising, which is, he doesn't make mistakes. He shows up. He presents himself in a way that a lot of times Virgo rising people will do, which is I am impeccable. And some Virgo rising people are impeccable because that's how they have to present themselves to the world. They have to present themselves to the world that I have my shit together, right? And, you can count on me. That's not really who he is. He's got issues. He's got also impulse control issues, right? Mercury in Taurus, 9th house, what's it doing? Squaring Uranus and then also squaring Chiron. And it's not in opposition to Neptune, but he's got impulse control issues, right? Mercury-Uranus squares can be impulse control. And then the square with Chiron, that's just weird. That's just really, really, really weird. He's got this Mars in Pisces, and he's got this opposition with the moon. Wayne Williams had mother issues. He had mother issues. Moon square Saturn, right? Saturn's in the 4th house. That would be the father. Like, was the father there? Was he around? I don't know. I really don't know the extent of Wayne Williams' story with growing up. Like, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time trying to understand the serial killer and a child abductor, but he's got that Mars-Saturn square as well. And again, we're dealing with some degree of impulse control. 22, right? Saturn's at 23. He's got Venus South Node. Here we go. This is Jeffrey Dahmer territory with the 8th house. Venus and Aries in the 8th house, 24 degrees. What's it doing? It's opposing Jupiter, right? It's opposing Neptune. There's something weird going on in that 8th house. But again, he's got the Venus, Pluto, Saturn trine. And so To some degree, what does Wayne Williams do? He looks respectable and presentable to the world. Why would he do it? He was a prodigy. Like, he was known as a fucking prodigy. He was a photojournalist. He was a freelance photojournalist. And at the end of the day, he is now associated with being, they talk about, whoa, look at all these serial killers, Geminis, Virgos, Sagittarius, Pisces. Yeah, well, guess what? Wayne Williams, WW, it's like even the two W's are very Gemini, right? Like, you are now, unfortunately, an astrological cliche because you have now fit the bill of a mutable sign that is a poster child for serial killings and murder. There you go. Your star of the day. And I don't, sometimes people are inspirational, but sometimes they're not. And the reason I bring these things up is because we can learn from their charts, even if they're not inspired. There were people I could have chose Henry Kissinger. We could have had a different conversation about a mass murderer in a different context, right? But we'd still wind up going there, but in a very different kind of way. He's still in jail, by the way. He's still in prison. He's still alive. Wayne Williams, Georgia, you don't look. And if you're in Georgia, I'm not saying that everybody in Georgia is fucked up, but I just had to bring this up because, and it was weird too, right? Because I'm replying to the comment and I bring up Wayne Williams' name. And then I go to the star of the day, and guess what? It's Wayne Williams' fucking birthday. So there's your Gemini synchronicity. All right. Thank you for being here. Come hang out with us over on 15 Minutes, where I skew the Kerrville Folk Festival. And in my estimation, capitalism gone wrong. And I'm not here to promote communism or socialism, but we're going to take a look at the thing that's presented to you, right? And the package and the brand and the actual cost to have that experience. So join us. All right. You know the drill. Take care of yourself. Treat each other well. God bless you. Love you all. Robert Phoenix signing off for now.